Good evening. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees is now convened in a regular board meeting on Monday, August 8, 2022 in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center, located at 10300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 6 p.m. I want to welcome the members of our audience and our television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we're here to set goals, listen to reports, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. Audience members may not participate in the meeting outside the designated agenda items for citizen participation or public comment. Disruption of the meeting by any person, including the audience, is inappropriate and will be addressed by the board president or the board's counsel as the meeting parliamentarian. Continued or repeated disruption of any board meeting by words or actions may result in removal or loss of the privilege to attend the meeting. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on Comcast Channel 16 and the district website. They will also be available as video on demand on the district website following tonight's meeting. For the video to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize our Community Leadership Committee members who are in attendance this evening. And that would be, and if you would, stand or wave your hand when I call your name. Nancy Frankel, Francis Romero, Stacy Anderson, Ryan Irving, I saw nobody, but, oh, okay, very good. I had my nose buried in the paper. I would also recognize that Representative John Rosenthal is in the audience. If you would either stand or wave your hand. We also have Grace Handley, who is the district director, for Representative Dr. Tom Oliverson in the audience as well. For Boy Scouts, we have Andrew Catchings of Troop Number 61. Thank you for being in attendance. We always give a slight applause to any of our scouts who are attending. As a start to the new school year, we've made changes in the meeting agenda and have new procedures in place for audience participation. During the board's Team of 8 training, consensus was reached regarding these changes. Persons who wish to participate in agenda comments, formerly referred to as public comments, and/or citizen participation, may sign up using the designated registration form link posted in the meeting agenda on the district's website, beginning when the meeting agenda is posted through 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Persons wishing to speak must complete the designated registration form in full and be present at the meeting to make his or her own comments during the designated time for agenda comments and/or citizen participation to be eligible to speak. Any registered speaker who is absent from the meeting at the time for agenda comments and/or citizen participation forfeits the opportunity to address the board at that meeting, but may submit written comments to the board. At each open meeting of the board, patrons who have registered in accordance with the procedures established by BED regulation may address the board during the designated agenda comments period prior to the board's consideration or action on the item. Patrons wishing to comment on more than one agenda item must complete a separate agenda comment request for each item. Unless the agenda is otherwise rearranged by the board president during the meeting, agenda comments will generally be taken prior to each agenda item. At each regular meeting of the board, patrons who have registered in accordance with the procedures and BED regulation may address the board during citizen participation on any matters of interest or concern that are not posted agenda items. Individuals may only register to speak one time per meeting under citizen participation. Unless the agenda is otherwise rearranged by the board president during the meeting, citizen participation will generally be held after reports and action items. For more detailed information on the amount of time allotted and the number of registered speakers for both agenda comments and citizen participation, please go to the district website under Addressing the Board. Patrons who have registered to speak this evening may see the order of names listed on the screens to your right and to your left. Before your name is called, please move forward and sit in one of the two reserved seats on the front row. The president reserves the right to rearrange the order of those who are speaking. The invocation for tonight's board meeting will be given by David R. Rucker, pastor of Adult Discipleship and Congregational Care for Cornerstone United Methodist Church, which many, many years ago, when I had hair, was actually my church. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
David and his wife, Camille, have two children, and their daughter, Dinah, is the principal at Leader Elementary School. Pastor Rucker served a number of United Methodist churches in the North Texas area over a 43-year period and was active in civic organizations and service clubs in order to further serve the communities in which he lived. We thank you, David, for being here tonight, and we appreciate your support for our district. Following the invocation, I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I would ask you to please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious Lord, we're grateful today to live in a country where we are free to speak our minds and free to elect those who will represent us well and take care of the business that is at hand in leading this country. Tonight, I pray especially for the board and for their wisdom and insight into the issues before them, that they might make decisions that are good for the community and good for the children. I pray for those who are registered to speak, that their comments might be succinct and poignant and heard with clarity and understanding. May your grace prevail in this meeting, and may all the decisions result in a better school district and better graduates for CFISD. In the name of Jesus we pray, amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Board member Lucas Scanlon will read the district's vision and mission statement for the benefit of the audience.
Thank you, President Jackson. Our vision at Cypress-ISD is formed from the acronym LEAD: to learn, empower, achieve, dream, lead. Our mission is to maximize every student's potential through rigorous and relevant learning experiences, preparing students to be 21st century global leaders.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the remarks and recognitions portion of the agenda. Agenda item 1A. The superintendent will make remarks and announcements regarding the honors and achievements earned by staff and students in recent weeks and provide information regarding district and community events or items of interest. There are no speakers on this agenda item this morning. Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as you may or may not know, summertime is different, but we are still busy in the summertime preparing for the school year. Plus, we have a lot of summer school activities going on. In fact, our summer school programs recently concluded, and we had 17,461 total participants from elementary through high school. Our summer graduation ceremony took place on August 3rd at the Berry Center, where we celebrated 199 summer graduates that put us over 9,000 graduates for the 2022 school year. The first day of school for the 22-23 school year will be Monday, August 22nd. We look forward to welcoming back our students and staff and remind the community to please show patience the first week of school as more vehicles, including school buses, are traveling the roads and bus drivers are learning new routes. For back to school resources, please go to our website. Registration is approaching for the Bus Buddies program, which invites volunteers to assist young bus riders as they reach their proper drop-off locations during the first 2 days of school, August 22nd and 23rd. Look for the Bus Buddies logo on the district website for registration information. The CFISD EdTech Department held its annual virtual digital learning conference on July 26th and 27th. This year, the DLC had more than 4,300 CFISD attendees on the 26th and 4,000 attendees on the 27th. A reminder that Monday, September 5th, will be a student and staff holiday in observance of Labor Day. Shri Yan Kata, Avinash Warsai Shilpi, Rithvik Katik Kinane, and Rohil Watwi placed first in the Community Awareness category at the Health Occupation Students of America HOSA International Leadership Conference held June 22nd through 26th in Nashville, Tennessee. HOSA is an extracurricular program that is designed to help develop future healthcare leaders through student-led activities. Students from Bridgeland and Cypress Woods High School received first and second place awards at the Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA, National Leadership Conference held June 24th through July 2nd in Chicago, Illinois. Bridgeland students Sri Harsha Pata placed first in Introduction to Business Concepts. Cypress Woods student Ryan Georgian and Ishal Warsai placed first in Entrepreneurship, and Bridgeland students Tarun Manoharan and Aditya Naidu placed second in Coding and Programming. That's all I have this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Agenda item 1B. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, Representative Will Hickman is unable to be here this evening, so we will recognize Langham Creek High School student Nitya Kodali at our September board meeting. There were no speakers this evening on agenda item 1B. We will now proceed with board comments. Item 2A. Board members may make comments during this portion of the agenda regarding schools visited, meetings and conferences attended, district and community events and initiatives, or continuing education. The board may not take action on the items discussed. There are no speakers this evening, but I suspect we may have board comments. I'll start on my right. Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we prepare for the new school year and classes officially start in a few short weeks, you may be a senior or kindergarten or someone who's maybe entering kindergarten or maybe just moved here or maybe from a different country. We know that our seasoned educators have been preparing for your arrival, getting the room ready, are getting ready for a very successful school year. We're all very excited for you to be here. It's been said that inspiring students are an integral part of ensuring their success, encouraging them to their full potential. Students who are inspired by teachers can accomplish amazing things, and by motivating them, almost always stays with them. Inspiration can always take many forms, from helping a student through their academic year, to their short-term goals, to guiding them towards their future career. Years after graduation, many young professionals still cite particular teachers as one of them who fostered their love of what they're currently doing and attribute them to their accomplishments as an educator. I can remember my great-grandmother talking about her teacher when I was talking to her at a very young age. She would talk about going to school when she was much younger. Much different than today. I once visited the schoolhouse where she was going to school. It was a one-room schoolhouse, 10 by 10, much smaller than we have today. Sadly, the only thing left of that building was the stone outline where the foundation was. Although our schools are bigger, time is much different. The desire to learn has not changed. Our wonderful teachers are ready and able to meet our kids. They're eager to pour out their energy and craft and the love they do each and every day. I wish everyone a great start of the great school year and the great happiness that comes from everyone here at Cy-Fair. Thank you very much.
Dr. Natalie Blassingame.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, and I want to welcome back all the incredible members of the faculty and staff at 92 unique and wonderful campuses across the district. I hope that their first day of professional development left you inspired and motivated for the year ahead. I was proud to be part of the team as we welcomed 1,000 new shining faces to Cy-Fair at the New Staff Orientation 2022, and we thank everyone who joined us for choosing CFISD. We hope to make it the best place to teach and learn through our board service. We also thank our community and business partners for welcoming the newest members of our CFISD family with swag. I must say I always enjoy listening to Superintendent Mark Henry speak in any setting. He does have a gift with words. And he brought a top 11 to the new staff, and they included, don't isolate yourself, respect your students, believe in your students, the way you learned it, be responsible with technology, and smile. And I'll have an aside with maybe the cutest kid on the slideshow, happened to be his granddaughter. Focus on the students, not just test scores. Develop appropriate relationships. View parents as partners. Weekday versus weekend, and relax and have fun. There was such wisdom in those words, and so I wanted to make sure those were heard by people beyond just the new staff. Thank you for inspiring the group as they joined. I want to thank also want to thank the administration for guiding this board through implementing a new board meeting policy that allows more or increased opportunities for stakeholders and concerned citizens to have a voice. School boards are the most local form of government, and we want to hear from you. On this topic, we also want to thank the 2,574 people who responded to the administration's survey, the first survey opportunity since 2016. Really look forward to more opportunities to hear from our citizens as we garner such incredible insight into the way people like to get information and their thoughts on what we want to look for to make future-ready graduates in our portrait of a graduate. Voice does matter. And I do hope that we'll continue to have opportunities, maybe town halls around the district, to hear a more granular level, the difference, what people are looking for to meet the needs of their students so that we can be the very best choice for every family. I believe in public schools, and I believe we can be the very best choice for every parent. And that is the goal I would say I have to serve you as a community. The library policy is an important step in maintaining trust in our public school system. We need to take the steps. However, the timing that we do these steps with does definitely need to honor teachers as they prepare for their students. One teacher wrote in an email about the policy that basically they mentioned, concerning about it being the beginning of the year, which we were hoping would start normally, will maybe start again with a hurdle. So we would definitely know that we are here to support our teachers, making sure that in good faith we are able to help empower them to quickly address the summer slide that happens every year and focus on their students in quality instruction. I was also pleased to see in the very cursory reading data that we received from the administration that 95% of students read on level or made progress. I look forward to digging into the data to understand which students are and are not on level so that we can provide what survey respondents cited as the #1 concern in our district. Inputs and outputs along the year so that we can measure closing the achievement gap that our community has asked for. I'm also voting an exuberant yes for that NWEA MAP budget item today as an interim measure to help us gauge progress along the way for students in their reading this year. Similarly, I'm voting yes on the Student Code of Conduct with a focus on respect that Dr. Henry has shared with the staff, and also very pleased to hear about the character education program. All of these are very outstanding work from an outstanding administration. And I look forward to getting baseline data on discipline and then making sure that we align our resources around those campuses where they need that support. And finally, I want to thank the chief and the incredible team, the MHIT team, and all of those who serve on the school safety committee. We have a top-notch safety plan. I think parents in this district should feel very safe sending their students to our schools because every detail has been thought through. There's law enforcement agencies that are integrating more and more with our community and our school district, and it's very thorough, and I just want to thank everyone who did their work on the safety plan. It's my privilege to serve the community, to serve you, our patrons in CFISD, and I wish everyone a great school year.
Mr. Sarabia.
Yes, welcome everybody back. Hope everybody had a nice summer break. I know I did. We want to wish our employees and our students a great upcoming year. We want to make sure that that we continue to strive to be the best as always. I was fortunate enough to attend at the end of June. Me and Lucas were fortunate enough to attend the state meeting up in Fort Worth, and we took in quite a few training sessions there and got to get some real informative work done up there in the state meeting. I think me and Lucas were quite agreeable in many things for the district, and that was a good thing to come about. And I appreciate his input in many of the things that we saw there. Also, that I came across quite a few students and employees this past couple of weekends here, and it looks like everybody is ready to go. They have their marching orders and they are revved up. I believe we're going to have a quite successful turnaround from the last 2 years, and I do plead for the community and for our attendees to have patience with the ongoings, because we do hear you guys. Just give us just give us a little time, and we will work things out. Thank you, Tom.
And to my left, Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you, President Jackson. So, greetings. I hope everybody had a good summer. And I want to say thank you to our administration and our teachers and our staff who worked so hard over the summer. For all those that want to see some really great work, please review the work session from Thursday evening and the reports that were put forth. I want to congratulate the administration on being so thoughtful in how you communicated with the parents, with the community, to make sure that we understood the priorities of the community and to demonstrate that we understand how they wish to be communicated with, the things that they find important, areas in which we need to improve, things that they believe are a top concern, as Dr. Blassingame had mentioned. But I wanted to call attention that, there's a really, for me, the portrait of a Cypher ISD student. And what does that final outcome mean? The administration is listening to our community, and we will continue to listen to our community. And we will continue to foster a parent partnership throughout the year. So I want to wish all of our staff, teachers, and administration well wishes going into this next year. We have all kinds of opportunities to see good learning outcomes, and I know that we will be creatively pursuing those as we work with our parents, as we collaborate with our students and inspire students and have those moments that lead them to new levels of achievement in their own lives. I wanted to give a shout out also for all the parents that want to understand school safety. Please, at any time, you can reach out to the administration, and we'd be happy to discuss with you the safety measures that we have in place. I think you will be quite relieved and encouraged. Chief and our staff and all those that have been part of our safety committee have done outstanding work in getting ready for the school year. It is truly impressive. Chief's sitting over there in the corner, trying to be quiet and stay out of the limelight, but I see you. And it really is, as a parent, my second grader going into school, I'm comforted. I know that my daughter's safe. And I know that all parents will be as well. So as we go forward in the new year, I look forward to opportunities in being in schools, volunteering, being around our community. And as Gilbert had alluded to, as we go into the year and we're working on implementation of this school book or library books policy, we know that it's a fair amount of work, and it's a opportunity for us to make sure that we're developing and building rapport with our community. And so please be patient as we work through any areas of opportunity that we see coming forward. We will find them. And as we do, I promise that the board and the administration will listen, and we will take steps to respond. Mr. Jackson.
Ms. Blackshear.
Good evening, everyone. It's hard to believe that another school year is upon us. I remember my grandmother telling me that as you grow older, that the days go by faster and the years do, and I certainly feel that way with a new school year upon us. I guess in a way, you know, a lot of our people have already been back. This past week, Monday morning, I attended the kickoff session for our school district leadership symposium at Berry Center, and had a chance to visit with a few of you, and how exciting to see that the enthusiasm for the new school year. But I think what really made my heart happy was on Friday at the new teacher orientation, and to see the new staff, you know, teachers, paras, food service, bus drivers, janitors or custodial care people, and to see the smiles on their face and visit with them. And what I really loved was when Dr. Henry was making his remarks, he made the statement to them, "So happy you chose us." And that's truly how I feel. I'm so happy because they could have gone to work for any district but chose Cypher ISD to be their employer. And I'm happy and want to express my appreciation to all of our existing staff who continue to choose us. We recognize it hasn't been an easy 2 years. I will attest to that. I wasn't in the classroom, but I was fighting battles, fighting COVID, and a year ago today I was just being moved out of ICU and into the regular section of the hospital. So I can understand and empathize with what you feel with all the changes that are being presented and what these last 2 years have represented. Pre-COVID, I visited with schools and principals and teachers, and no, it wasn't easy, and I know it continues to not be easy for you. Attended summer school graduation, and that was so gratifying as well, because what made it so special was these 199 students persevered. It could have been so easy to quit and not finish, but they persevered and they finished their college degree, and now they are moving on to their next step in life. At our last meeting, I was very pleased to see some of the numbers from our STAR, and I continue to see how our students are coming around and moving past STAR, or moving past COVID, I should say. And I also want to say thank you to our teachers, to our staff, and to our stakeholders who email us after board work sessions and express their feelings and their opinions and give us another perspective that we may not always see. So thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate that, and look forward to continue hearing from you. And I'm always glad to have a conversation, face-to-face conversation with anyone. Thank you, and happy school year.
Ms. Heinerman.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So much has already been said, but I want to share in the thanks for our teams that worked over the summer with our summer school program. You know, to have 17,000 students participate in summer school is incredible. That's actually larger than most school districts in total in Texas. And we had that many students just in summer school. But that's time that some kids were making up missing credit. They were doing enrichment programs. They were catching up with their peers. But the teachers and the staff that worked with those students over the summer, I just want to say thank you for spending your summer with our students. Also want to thank the teams that work on getting our facilities ready. Our facilities groups, maintenance, custodial services, food service, groundskeepers. It takes a lot of work to get our schools ready to open up on the first day of school, and especially with so much of the renovations that are going on around our district, to make sure that our campuses are open and ready to go on the first day of school. So thank you for all those teams that have been working so hard over the summer. It was still a busy summer. There was still a lot going on. I was able to visit with the Junior Police Academy that was held at Spillane Middle School, and that was just such a fun week for campers to really learn some new skills, to learn about law enforcement, to learn how to work together as a team. And I'm grateful for the officers that participated in the Junior Police Academy, who gave, again, their summertime to work with kids and to build those positive relationships with our students. I also appreciate the sponsors that donated and that provided scholarships to many students who would not have been able to participate in that summer camp otherwise. I also attended the leadership conference for our district leaders, including campus leaders and department leaders. And as my colleagues have stated, I was moved and inspired by comments made by Dr. Henry when he encouraged people to be open to lead. We are open. We're open to lead. We open our eyes and our ears and our hearts and our minds to best serve our students. Attended the Cypher Educational Foundation Scholarship Reception, where we honored students who received scholarships and are preparing to head off to college. What's really unique about this program, not only do they receive scholarships and financial support for their college experiences, but they also receive mentors. So they have a positive adult in their lives that can help support them as they venture into college. Many of our students are first time, they may be the first person in their family going to college. And so those mentors really help support those students and their families through that process. I did attend summer school graduation, and that was you said it perfectly, Debbie. Just so proud of the resilience and the commitment and the dedication of the students and their teachers to help them get to that finish line and receive their high school diplomas. And then finally today, I did pop in and spent some time at the professional development the first day, and it was great to see teachers, new teachers and returning teachers, and just to get to be a part of that first day experience with them. I am excited for this school year. I think it's going to be better. I think it's going to be, we're finally going to have that sense of normalcy, and we're going to get to just love on our kids and fill them with the joy of learning. And so I feel like we can finally catch our breath and just look forward in a positive way to this school year. As Debbie said, I'm grateful for the communication we've received. You know, we talked about that having 2 meetings, and it really is very helpful when we have a work session and then we have a couple of days to digest the information, to get feedback from our stakeholders and from our community, and then to come back and work again on those agenda items. So that model is, I think, very effective. So thank you to all who shared your thoughts and concerns and input on our meeting agendas. So, thank you.
From our last board meeting in June until tonight, it's been a very busy period. I attended the Leadership Symposium as well, and here are some of my key takeaways. Dr. Henry noted that the key focus for the upcoming school year was on safety, discipline, and attendance. He reminded us to be open to lead and to open our mind, ears, eyes, and heart. He led with reminding our leaders that our students treasure most highly their co- and extracurricular activities. Indeed, this is and has been a great strength of this district and has been enhanced since Dr. Henry came here 11 years ago. He also reminded us, judge less, understand more. I, too, attended the scholarship reception and was thrilled to meet my 3 scholarship recipients. Receiving the scholarship in Liz's name, Maria will attend Texas Tech to study civil engineering. Hope will use the scholarship in the name of my children to attend UT Austin to earn a journalism degree, while Jacob will attend UT Austin to pursue a degree in RTF. I know my parents would be proud to know that Jacob will represent the scholarship that is in their name. He was here just last May as we honored him for winning first place nationally in the field of his endeavor, which was in the area of video production. Each of these students recounted to me the beneficial impact of their teachers, but also their participation in extra and co-curricular activities. I would share with you that Jacob was amazed and excited to be able to tell me how he accessed professional camera and video equipment and professional guidance and teaching. The upgrade in this area was a result of a newly arrived superintendent, Dr. Mark Henry, who said, "I want us to be the best in the country." And since we're in Houston and not out in Los Angeles, I thought that was a tall order. It took some time. We had to have dollars for the equipment, and we thank the bond steering committee, which at that time was headed by Julie Heineman, but we also thank the citizens who voted for the board approval, and we see that your dream has really come true, Mark. Meeting the new teachers is always a thrill, and I came early and stayed late to visit with as many as I could in the hallways. From those newly arrived from out of state or other school districts, or those bringing skills to auto mechanics at 2 different campuses, their passion to pre-K, their smiles and organizational skills to the front desk, and so many more. I joined my colleagues at the Summer Leadership Institute, which was held in San Antonio, and I was a sidebar object lesson in how not to run a meeting. The seminar was on parliamentary procedure, and interestingly enough, people from around the state do in fact watch our board meetings. And so I will tell you, to my colleagues, I failed in running the meeting when I permitted a colleague to interrupt out of order. So I will ask you to hold me accountable in properly running the meeting, and I myself will hold you accountable to follow board procedure and Robert's Rules of Orders. I also attended the safety committee, both the public portion as well as the executive session, and we heard the revised safety meeting results on Thursday. I would also add that as part of it, we did indicate heightened monitoring of the hallways of the school for internal strife, and perhaps we may have to return to the occasional monitoring of bathrooms as we did during the TikTok upset. It may be something that we need to think about. I also attended summer school graduation of almost 200 students, and I'm thrilled to hear the commencement address by the student as she reassured us that their goal was the same as the 7,000 some odd who graduated on time in May. Made my heart feel good, and I was proud. So tonight I tip my hat to those who strive to succeed by persevering despite roadblocks and challenges, and the teachers and counselor who helped them along the way. I would also mention that State Representative John Rosenthal indicated he was showing up tonight, and I told him you can't speak because you haven't signed up. And he understood. However, he did want me to share some comments with you, and as an elected official at making that request, I will do so. But I will ask management to let all of our legislative delegation and those who represent us in Austin about the change in procedure in case they should ever wish to come to a meeting to talk to us. I will not read his entire letter, but basically to let you know that it was on 2 points. The new procedures for signing up to register to speak, but also for the library policy. And I'll cover the library policy in my comments now as opposed to mentioning that when we talk about the library policy. And the reason why I'm doing that is because these are not my words but his. And I'll quote from here on out. Now, I'd also like to address the draft revision of the library policy being discussed this evening, EFB local. I applaud the sensible approach to clarify this policy. Using Texas Penal Code and other state law definitions as criteria for wholly inappropriate or harmful materials is the correct approach. Having a well-defined process to appoint the team for reconsideration of materials is forward-leaning and a reasonable way to ensure fair and dispassionate consideration and evaluation. We should always encourage parents to be involved in their children's education. It is, of course, appropriate for parents to be involved in decisions affecting their own children and what materials they may or may not want their kids to be able to access. It is equally reasonable and appropriate to limit any single individual's influence to their own children so that all parents may make these decisions for their own families. It is my hope that all of our stakeholders can participate together to work through these issues together in the spirit of cooperation and inclusion. I look forward to engaging further with all of you as we move forward through these often difficult decisions. Kind regards, John Rosenthal, Texas State Representative, House District Number 135. That concludes board comments. Finally, right? 6:41. Took us a while. Agenda items 3A and 3B under the reports portion of the agenda were presented at the board work session on Thursday, August 4th, 2022. We do have patrons who have registered to speak on these items this evening. Item 3A, the administration provided a report on the results of the CFISD survey administered to parents, staff, and the community. Now, to remind everybody, unless instructed otherwise, you will have 2 minutes to speak. At the 30-second mark, the yellow light will come on. When the red light comes on, please wrap up your comments succinctly. Number 1, Stacy DeMeyer, CFISD parent. And pardon me just a second, Ms. DeMeyer. Mr. Secretary, are you ready? Yes. Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
Good evening. My name is Stacy DeMeyer, and I am a CFISD parent. Last Thursday, we saw a presentation on the results of the community survey. The survey was done well, and the district truly did a great job selecting the questions that were included. I especially appreciated the portion of the survey that asked the community about matters concerning diversity in the district. Remember, the folks who attend these meetings and speak are not representative of the district as a whole, including myself. But I think the survey helped to show the district and the board just how much the community cares about diversity and diversity initiatives. And most importantly, that it matters to an overwhelming majority of CFISD parents. Even before the survey results were presented, and we received confirmation that diversity does in fact matter to district stakeholders, Dr. Evelyn Ogletree, Christina Woods, and I began working on collecting signatures to be co-signers on a letter we wrote. The letter, along with a list of the signees, has already been passed around to y'all and serves as a plea to the district to form a DEI advisory committee. Our vision for this committee is that it will be made up of a diverse group of district stakeholders who will volunteer their time and consult with the district on DEI initiatives, including assisting the district with the rewriting of the resolution condemning racism. This effort is not just something that the community wants, but will also lead to improved academic performance, especially for our most vulnerable student population. We request that the district meets with us before the September board meeting and that we are involved in the selection of committee participants. Lastly, I just want to quickly give you all a breakdown of who signed our letter. Every single person who is included on the list is either one of or a combination of the following: CFISD parent, teacher, staff member, grandparent, taxpayer, student, alum, parent of a student, CFISD alum, someone previously employed by the district, business owner in the district, and we even have some former trustees who signed as well. We currently have 110 signatures, and the list is growing. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Christina Woods.
Good evening. This month's Community Impact reported that discipline reports in CFISD increased by a whopping 224% over the last 5 years, and that 25% of students were disciplined in 2021-22. This aligns with the concerns that stakeholders have in the survey about discipline. While fingers might point to the pandemic as the culprit, the article clarifies that students were already susceptible to high levels of stress prior to COVID. The CDC reports that 1 in 3 high schoolers were experiencing persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness in 2019. Texas has the highest child poverty rate in the nation. 10% of our kiddos and almost a quarter of their parents are uninsured. Half of CFISD students are economically disadvantaged, meaning they face unstable food and housing and lack of access to medical care, including quality mental health care. During the worst of COVID, students saw teachers under a ridiculous amount of stress when their need for solid safety protocols were continually ignored by the district and state government. In 2020, our young people were reckoning with the reality of black men being murdered by white cops and neighbors, and a president that fed the fires of racial hatred and violence with lies and vitriol. Our children have felt the effects of state policies that make college unaffordable, promote a reckless culture of gun violence, hatred and bigotry sown in attacks on LGBTQ youth and their families, and the very existence of BIPOC in school curricula, and the promotion of hate and white supremacy in our school board meetings. Young people are expert at showing adults where we've gone wrong. Their distress should make sense to every one of us as we take in what their young hearts and minds are grappling with. I know the district wants to support teachers in creating positive learning environments in their classrooms, but it must not come at further cost to our most vulnerable students, and those most likely to be hurt by more punitive disciplinary policies are Black students. Kids are hurting. Adults are the ones responsible. Please start there.
Item 3B, the administration provided a report on the CFISD safety and security measures for the 2022-2023 school year. We have one speaker, Christina Wood, CFISD resident.
Hi, I'm back. The district has spent $250 million on safety and security in the last 8 years. I commend the district for using that money to put a complex safety and security plan in place to prevent school shootings. Yet our governor and GOP lawmakers love making money for the gun industry, which they know puts our students in peril and causes them immense stress and trauma. With every school massacre, Abbott doubles down on school districts to hold them increasingly accountable for preventing and interrupting school shootings. He and the Texas GOP do this while they openly endanger the lives of our kids by continuing to pass gun laws that promote gun violence.
Pardon me, Ms. Woods.
Yes.
So is this clearly on the agenda item? I don't remember that.
Safety and security?
Well, we have safety and security. So let's be sure that we're talking about what's on the agenda item. Please proceed. You still have all your time.
Okay. Children being decapitated on graduation day in their fourth grade classrooms is insanity. Police officers being outgunned by teenage shooters with assault weapons is insanity. This year, the district is spending roughly $15 million on policing and security. The Cypress community, like so many others, continues to bear the financial brunt of campus security measures, even though the trauma of mass shootings continue. Texas bears the distinct and terrifying title of being #1 in mass shootings. Uvalde must be a game changer. CFISD can influence state policy. Public education is about creating a future for our kids. To live up to this ideal, safety is key, but we cannot achieve true safety by continuing to avoid the AR-15 in the room. As a district, we must stop allowing our lawmakers to normalize school shootings and gun violence. The district must demand our governor pass gun reforms like universal background checks, safe storage, and red flag laws. Gun policy matters, but districts need to act as though it does. And the rest of us must vote out lawmakers who always choose the gun industry over our children.
I'm going to go off script. I will ask our patrons, we did enhance the ability of patrons to speak on agenda items, and we also greatly enhanced the number of patrons who can speak in citizen participation on off-topic items. I would ask our patrons to work as hard as you can to make certain that your comments are clearly on the agenda item. And if you want to speak off-topic, we have provided a space and a platform for you to do so. We will now proceed with the action items portion of the agenda. Agenda items 4A through 4D, 4F through 4M, and 4O through 4Q were moved to consensus during the board work session on Thursday, August 4th, 2022. These are as follows. My voice is already starting to go. So Vice President Heineman, if you would, are you up to speed? So start with 4A and roll us through.
Item 4A, the board will consider approving the minutes of the June 13th, 2022 regular board meeting. There are no speakers this evening. 4B, the board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds and M&O funds to the recommended contractors, and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. 4B1, 2021 Black, Danish, and Duryea Elementary School renovations. There are no speakers this evening. 4C, the board will consider awarding bids and contracts and/or authorizing purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item. 4C1, contracted educational services and professional development services. 4C2, food service equipment for nutrition services. 4C3, Northwest Evaluation Association, NWEA, MAP growth enrollment for the 2022-2023 school year. 4C4, restaurant, catering, and delivery services. 4C5, spirit apparel and promotional items. There are no speakers this evening. 4D, the board will consider approving the Harris County easement dedication along Westfield Village Drive, adjacent to M. Robinson Elementary, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. There are no speakers this evening. 4F, the board will consider a resolution approving the individual authorized to calculate the no new revenue tax rate, the voter approval tax rate, and all other truth and taxation requirements. There are no speakers this evening. 4G, the board will consider approving the 2022-2023 Cypress-Fairbanks ISD Student Code of Conduct. There are no speakers this evening. 4H, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent to execute the renewal of the 2022-2023 interlocal agreement with Harris County for specialized services at the Academic Behavior School, ABS, West. There are no speakers. 4I, the board will consider approving the renewal of the 2022-2023 interlocal agreement with Harris County for school-based therapy services. There are no speakers this evening. 4J, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent to execute a memorandum of understanding with Nova Southeastern University for speech pathology field placement. There are no speakers this evening. 4K, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent to execute the renewal of the memorandum of understanding with the University of Houston main campus for licensed specialist in school psychology practicum internship. There are no speakers this evening. 4L, the board will consider approving the interlocal agreement with the University of Texas at Austin to obtain the services for educational coursework or training project for the 12 CFISD high school sites. There are no speakers this evening. The board, 4M, the board will consider approving on first reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policies. 4M1, DBB local, employment requirements and restrictions, medical examinations and communicable diseases, revise. 4M2, EED local, instructional arrangements, student schedules, revise. There are no speakers this evening. 4O, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent to negotiate and execute a memorandum of understanding with Harris County first responders for coordinated and uniform emergency response protocols. There are no speakers. 4P, the board will consider approving a resolution pursuant to Education Code 28.004 to convene the district's School Health Advisory Council, SHAC, to recommend curriculum material for instruction. There are no speakers. 4Q, the board will consider adopting the CFISD Bringing Out the Best Character Education Program. We have one speaker signed up.
Brian Henry, CFISD parent and resident. Mr. Henry, the 30-second light is not working this evening, so Secretary Sarabia will give you a signal when you have 30 seconds left. Please
I feel
proceed
like something's
when
out
you're
of order. Could you clarify what agenda item this is for?
ready. 4Q.
So not the book one, but the character education,
Correct.
correct? Gotcha.
So the agenda item, just to repeat, the board will consider adopting the CFISD Bringing Out the Best Character Education Program. Is that the one that you signed up to speak on, sir?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Please proceed.
Good evening. As an educator who is passionate about civic education, I am pleased with the new character education program Bringing Out the Best and applaud the district for emphasizing the values of good citizenship. However, I think it is helpful to point out the inconsistencies between this program and harmful legislation like Texas House Bill 3979, which would require teachers to present both sides of topics like the January 6th insurrection and LGBTQ rights. If our character education program promotes patriotism, respect for authority, and freedom from prejudice, then there are not two sides to these issues. Trying to overturn an election and denying people their rights is wrong, and teachers should be able to say so. I support the new character education program for encouraging students to look beyond themselves and recognize their civic responsibilities. Any board member who disagrees with this aim threatens to undermine the civic mission of public schools in a diverse, pluralistic society. Thank you.
If any board member wishes to remove one or more of these items for further discussion, please do so at this time. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consensus items as recommended or amended. Ms. Blackshear.
Yes, sir. I motion that we accept the consensus items as presented or amended as presented.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We can now have discussion on any of these items. This is always an appropriate time if you want to say why you are going to vote either in favor or against the consensus items. You can do so at this time. I see, looking to the left, looking to the right, no comments. Then I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. The motion passes. Holly, please so designate. The following action items remained on non-consensus. 4E, the board will consider approving board members to serve as delegate and alternate delegate to the 2022 Texas Association of School Boards Annual Delegate Assembly. Vice President Julie Heineman is a member of TASB. All members of the 42 TASB members are automatically a delegate to the Assembly. Is there a board member who wishes to nominate themselves or somebody else to be a delegate or an alternate? Yes, Dr. Blassingame. Mr. Sarabia.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Dr. Natalie Blassingame.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Holly. Is there a nomination for someone to serve as an alternate delegate? There is not, so we shall proceed.
President Jackson.
Oh, Mr. Scanlon. Ms. Blackshear.
Okay. I do plan to attend the convention, so if we need a delegate, I would be willing to serve in that position.
Well, an alternate?
Alternate, I'm sorry.
So you have nominated yourself. So we have a nomination. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded for Debbie Blackshear to be our alternate delegate. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion has been passed. 4N, the board will consider approving on dual reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policies. 4N1, BED local board meetings, public participation revised. 4N2, EF local instructional resources delete. 4N3, EFA Local Instructional Resources, Instructional Materials, add. 4N4, EFB Local Instructional Resources, Library Materials, add. 4N5, EHAA Local Basic Instructional Program, Required Instruction, add. 4N6, FM Local Student Activities, revised. 4N7, FNAB Local Student Expression, Use of School Facilities for Non-School Purposes, revised. We have 11 individuals who have signed up to speak. I will rearrange slightly the order of individuals who have signed up to speak, but everybody who signed up will be permitted to speak. First, Stacy DeMeyer. And I would remind you that the yellow light is not working. So Secretary Sarabia. Mr. Secretary, are you ready?
No, 1 second.
Just a minute, please. Mr. Secretary, just a second. I will note that there are revisions in the library policy. As I mentioned at Thursday, implementation of a policy this significant will always have hiccups, and we will have to have tweaks. And we have already been tweaking, and we tweaked it over the weekend. So just for our speakers to understand, there may be tweaks on topics that you'll be talking about. However, the way that we have this set up is patrons will speak on the topic, and then there will be an additional presentation being made after everybody speaks. So just not to catch anybody unawares. So, are we ready now? Very good. We're ready. Ms. DeMeyer.
My name is Stacy DeMeyer, and I am a CFISD parent. I'm limiting my comments tonight to how this policy will affect our teachers and librarians, because honestly, the immediate negative impacts on them is urgent and of great concern. I spent a lot of time at my kids' school, and I see firsthand the work our teachers and librarians do on a daily basis. They purchase books for their classroom libraries with their own money, and they have a lot of them. Aside from the fact that we should be trusting our highly trained teachers, requiring them to inventory their books by the first day of school, or else risk that they be excluded from use until they do so, is entirely unreasonable. This will negatively impact their teaching abilities as well as student literacy. It took months for the district to write this policy, and yet our teachers and librarians are expected to implement it in 2 weeks, or else books may be off limits. Librarians may also be the school's media specialist and responsible for Chromebook distribution. You can imagine how big of a task that is for elementary school librarians who are currently managing the distributions of hundreds of Chromebooks for the incoming pre-K and kindergarten students. Districts all over Texas are experiencing teacher shortages, including our own. The Houston Chronicle reported today that more than 2/3 of Texas teachers are on the verge of quitting. We cannot afford to risk burdening our teachers and librarians unnecessarily. The implementation of the new policy must take place over a longer period of time, and during this implementation phase, there should be no books off limits to any teacher or student. Lastly, while I appreciate President Jackson reassuring librarians and presumably teachers that the board is not punitive, the mention of disciplinary or legal action against district employees by another board member was inappropriate and extremely harmful. The trustees have tremendous influence over our community, and the comments y'all make are taken seriously by many. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Catherine Wells.
My name is Kate Wells, and I've been an elementary classroom teacher in the district for 13 years. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. The question I always ask myself, and I wish to ask tonight, is this the best for kids and the best for teachers? The policy is going to be, I quote from Monday's working meeting, a heavy lift before school starts. There are many ideas that I could bring to my classroom that would be viewed as best for students. It would take me the whole weekend to complete, but the students would talk about this learning experience all year. I have to be careful, though, that that is not my normal. I can't always be thinking about what's best for my students. I have to gather ideas that are best for my students, but are also best for me as their teacher. At the working board meeting on Monday, it was stated by the district that this policy would be, I quote, a heavy lift before school starts. We've had several of those already. In the last 3 years, teachers went over and above. They were asked to help with all of the gaps in learning and do whatever it takes to get students to where they needed to be. But teachers cannot be continually asked to do whatever it takes every year. TEA has given a guideline that books need to be marked with their correct collection. This is not, however, a panic situation. This is not the last 3 years. This should not be another reason that the beginning of the year will again be a heavy lift for teachers. This year, we're still accommodating the 45-45 bill, and we'll still be doing our all to bring our low readers up to grade level. These are already heavy burdens for us. Collation of libraries and a system of accountability is important, but I would humbly ask that this policy, if passed, would not be enacted for the beginning of the year. If teachers and librarians were required to withhold or partially open libraries until books are checked individually and put in their correct collection, there is going to be a significant delay in our ability to start authentic instruction at the beginning of this school year. And our students cannot afford any more delays. This cannot be what is best for our students. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Veronica Skoda, CFISD resident.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Skoda, and I'm a CFISD student. This coming year, I'm going into 6th grade. One of the things I was most excited for was to check out a library book as soon as I could. But when I learned that books won't be available for a certain amount of time and some are banned, I was really disappointed. The way that schools are changing the way we access books is unfair to students, teachers, and librarians. There's always a lot of work at the beginning of the school year, so the labeling of thousands of books adds more work than there should be. That's why it would make more sense to wait until later in the year to change the library rules. The fact that only a handful of people want books banned changes the way that schools let kids read is far from fair. If this district wants to educate kids, then let us read from day one. Thank you for listening.
Our next speaker is Diana Alexander, CFISD employee.
Esteemed board, I am a proud public education educator and former ELA teacher at the middle school level. We are charged as educators to provide free, appropriate public education, also known as FAPE, to every child who walks through our doors without exception. Yet, with this proposed policy, it is showing children and young adults in our school system that censorship is a lesson plan for the coming school year. Teachers take great pride in meeting their students where they are, selecting texts that support the curriculum, validate student perspectives and diverse experiences, all the while looking to reduce barriers to reading. Unfortunately, this policy is contrary to all of the above. Each of you on the board has a choice to respect teachers and students by voting no on the measure this evening. Vote no and trust teachers. Vote no and facilitate lifelong learning through literacy. Vote no and support librarians. Vote no. Thank you.
I am taking the next speaker out of order. Kara McIntyre, CFISD resident.
Hello, my name is Kara McIntyre, and I want to talk about the proposed policy regarding books in Cyfair schools. Everyone here knows why reading is beneficial. It expands vocabulary, etc., but it also helps us better understand the human experience. And sometimes that means our own experience by seeing ourselves represented in stories. It's a means of self-affirmation, validating our own importance and value as a member of society. And it also means learning about people who are different than us. Humans are tribal creatures by nature, with our subconscious identifying who is us and who is them. We have to be intentional and seek out knowledge of people who are different than us. Reading stories of people who don't look like us, who are from a different socioeconomic status, it's an important part of becoming a community of engaged and empathetic members of society. Having diverse reading material emphasizes how much we're all alike, despite what outward appearance or knee-jerk subconscious judgments might tell us. The typical American only lives 18 miles from where they grew up. Our bubbles are small, they tend to stay that way. Reading is a way to travel the world to meet new people without ever stepping foot out of the house or school, whichever the case may be. I've been increasingly concerned about censorship in our schools. We trust teachers and schools to care for our kids for roughly half of their waking hours, and we should include in that trust their ability to curate a classroom library that will engage and open the minds of their students. I grew up at a time without the kind of censorship I'm seeing today, and I'm forever thankful for that. My family didn't have money to travel, but I had a school library, a public library, and teachers who provided books. That's how I first learned about the world outside my own little Texas suburb. I implore you, don't set up roadblocks for today's kids to have less access. And to the students of Cyfair ISD, in the wise words of LeVar Burton, read the books they don't want you to. That's where the good stuff is.
I'm taking the next speaker out of order, Jennifer Chanette, CFISD resident.
Hello, everybody. Pull my microphone down. I just want to be clear that parents can choose to opt their child out of the library completely. They can log into their student's account and see what books they have checked out. They can prevent their child from checking out books. They can decide if they want their child to be able to access higher reading levels. They can talk to their campus librarian about certain authors they don't like. But that's not enough, is it? Now we are asking our hardworking, underpaid, well-educated teachers to inventory their classroom libraries and submit a list to the librarian for approval. Students will not be able to touch a book in their classroom until this is done. A small, loud minority of parents have created this chaos. This group is closely aligned with certain board members. One board member is concerned about award-winning books and wants to make sure that they also go under the microscope. They also want to know who will be held accountable if a book slips through the cracks. Are we going to start prosecuting teachers? Another board member is worried about the kid whose parent will let them take part in an assigned reading. They worry that child may be bullied by other kids as a result. Where does the insanity end? Another board member talks about how respect is a constant discussion in his village. What village is that? Aren't we all part of one big, diverse village in CFISD? The new board members need to remember that they represent everyone in this district, not just their friends and donors. What's next? Footloose, the 2022 version? Are we going to ban dancing now? Make America read again and make America smart again. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brian Henry, CFISD parent and resident.
Hello again. I'm struggling to understand the timing and implementation of the new book policy, and even more so the tone with which certain board members are discussing it. Why, on the heels of what many say was the hardest school year ever, and with a huge teacher shortage right now, is the district insisting on pushing through such a time-consuming policy? And why are board members cracking jokes about how hard it will be? The policy itself seems good, and I applaud the board for their collaboration and compromise, but the rollout and the rhetoric seem tone-deaf. More clarity on the timeline of this implementation is needed. Why not phase this in slowly over the course of the fall semester? Teachers don't need flowers and chocolate. They need more time and more respect. Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Post, CFISD parent and resident.
Thank you very much. My daughter is starting 6th grade at Aragon Middle School this year. When I was her age, I lived in the library. I would read anything I could get my hands on. History, mystery, science, math. I read about mythology, anything I could read. And I was never scared. It never hurt me. It never damaged me. If I had any questions, I knew I could talk to my parents about it. I knew I could talk to my teachers about it. I even went to a very small school, so the principal's door was always open for me to go in there. Information in and of itself is not dangerous. Suppression of information is dangerous. We can't go into a year with our teachers with their hands tied behind their backs. We need to go ahead, let the teachers teach, support them in their jobs. For us parents, we are very appreciative of what you guys do for us. So thank you very much. Please don't do this to them. You might find out it's not as popular as you might think. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alexei Swirsky.
Yes, I grew up reading. I was a child of a single parent. We moved around a lot. I went to multiple libraries. I actually learned to read at age 2. I was very gifted that way. I never saw anything or read any sexually inappropriate material in the schools or in the libraries. And I have an undergraduate degree, a master's degree. I'm happily married. Exposing children inappropriately to sexual material at young ages is not censorship, it's protection. It's respecting the parents' rights. This new Cypher ISD library book policy program, as presented by Dr. Macias, is a huge step in the right direction. Thank you. The school's job is to educate children in academic areas and to protect them while doing so, just as children should always be protected. Parents have the right to restrict what the children are exposed to. The school-parent relationship is a partnership. I'm grateful to the district for implementing a program which respects parents' rights in regards to what their children read. At the last meeting, a school board member asked a question inquiring how the parents' requests regarding their children and library books will be kept track of and honored. While I was glad to hear the Cypher librarians and parents have a good relationship, that is not enough to prevent children from checking out the books and materials that their parents don't want them to online or in person. I have a good relationship with my husband, but if he asks me to get a few things at the grocery store and I don't write them down, I'll forget some of the things. And there are hundreds and thousands of students in these schools in Cypher ISD, so I ask that a more proficient and efficient policy be developed. It's school's responsibility to protect the children and respect the parents' rights, and I think this policy goes a long way towards doing that, and I ask for a yes vote on this policy. Thank you.
One of the changes that we made in signing up by our patrons is we ask if you intend to use vulgar language or language you consider to be vulgar and inappropriate, please so indicate on the form. In so doing, I can move you around and I can notify the viewing audience, and if we happen to have any children in the room, they can excuse themselves if they so desire, or parents can do so, or if you're viewing at home and you have children viewing, parents can take steps that they deem appropriate. So I appreciate our next two speakers who did check the box to identify so that we could proceed in this fashion. So if anybody wants to leave the room, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do so, maybe a minute and a half, and then we'll start up with our speakers again. So there won't be any vulgar language. Well, You know, all new policies, as I mentioned on Thursday, when you implement brand-new policies, there's always some hiccups, and I guess maybe we just had our first one. So I would call Jen Williams, CFISD, parent, employee, and resident, as the next speaker.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Jen Williams, and I'm the secretary of the Real Cy-Fair Civic Alliance. I am also a special education teacher, a seasoned teacher new to Cy-Fair, a parent of 2 elementary-age kiddos, and a resident of Cy-Fair. As I sat through Thursday's board work session listening to the proposed library material cataloging system being discussed, I'll be honest, I was filled with rage. When the EFB document was shared on our district website, I read it in its entirety. The library plans feel prudent given the extremist nature of some members of our board and community. There is a general distrust for all educators right now, and this provides full transparency. However, where my anger stems from is the ways in which we are going to be supported through this daunting task with an impossible timeline. I do not want your flowers or chocolate. I do not want to be expected to thrive in impossible scenarios. I want to be trusted and respected as an educator. I highly suggest that the board reconsider the time frame that this is expected to roll out. Teachers need access to books to teach come the first day of school. We should not be expected to change our lesson plans with 2 weeks' notice. While we are setting up our rooms and attending trainings and building community within teachers and on our campuses, we use books to teach expectations within our classrooms. We use books to teach social skills. We use books to teach deep thinking concepts. We need access to books at all times, all books. We support this policy. However, the time frame is unrealistic. We respectfully request adjusting the time frame to implement this policy to make the policy effective January 2023. Adjusting the date will prevent undue stress to teachers and therefore students and provide everyone ample opportunity to have the system implemented, tested, and verified prior to required use by all. Please show consideration and respect to those that will be most affected by the implementation of this policy. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Liz Craven, CFISD parent.
Hello, sorry about that. I promise all my vulgarities stay in my car like a sane person. All right, my name is Liz, and I have students at Moore Elementary and Hamilton Middle School. As of July 7th, CFISD had a shortage of 768 teachers. I know this number has gone down due to recommendations that were still being processed, but that's the most current number I could find. I was unable to find a number of open librarian positions in the district. If it is all similar to the teacher shortage, I'm sure it is more than likely a significant number. Our educators are already overworked and understaffed. They have to focus more on paperwork than actual education. This new proposal puts an undue burden on teachers and librarians to create a system that even our vendors could not create. It also puts school and classroom libraries at the risk of not being open when school begins on the 22nd. How can we instill a love of reading and learning in our students if they do not have books available to read? The district already has procedures in place to opt students out of certain books, authors, and even library time, as discussed earlier. We also have a procedure to review questionable books. Why are we recreating the wheel and adding unnecessary stress to our overburdened educators? We are allowing a small but loud minority to dictate how our schools should be run and adding unnecessary and time-consuming work rather than allowing them to educate. As Judy Blume said in Summer Sisters, something will be offensive to someone in every book, so you've got to fight it. Thank you.
The board has already seen revisions to the policy, but the public has not. So I'm going to throw the ball over to either Dr. Linda Macias or Marnie Sims or Teresa Hull or Dr. Mark Henry to bring us up to date as to what changes are we thinking about implementing when we decide to vote. So whichever one of y'all has the short straw, please proceed.
Well, I guess I'm closest to the microphone as Linda scooted her chair over. No, I appreciate the input. I really do. We have such great stakeholders, and we really do appreciate our parents and our community members who have really been talking with us and the board members about this policy. And just to be clear, a lot of, and I think Linda shared that when we first talked about it, but a lot of what we put in the policy honestly was codifying, for lack of a better way to describe it, practices that we had in place. Talking to board members, talking with even community members or parents. I think as some of you have noted, librarians, they know if a parent wants to say, my child should have access to some books that you have behind the desk on the 8th grade shelf, or I think somebody was sharing that the parent said, no more Captain Underpants books. My kid, don't send another one home. And so our librarians have always worked with parents and communities. So we have these practices and procedures in place. So a lot of what we put in the policy was really what we were already doing, and working with our librarians, who we've said from the beginning are the content specialists. And I had the privilege of getting to know several of them as we worked together so that I could understand a little bit more about how the library operates, so that we could make suggestions and revisions to the board. And it was truly my privilege, and shout out to some of my favorite librarians that we sat on the committee with, and they really helped educate me, which is what they do. They're educators. They are master level degreed professionals, and they educate just on a school-wide basis instead of just in the classroom. But got off on that tangent, which I'm often want to do. But so after Thursday, we talked, and several of the board members, I think I almost talked to everyone individually, and the main concern after was, what is going to be the impact? And Linda and I talked, and when we said, yes, it's going to be an impact, then after we said, well, actually instructional materials would be under EFA. So books that are used in the instructional process actually are under a different policy, but just the pleasure reading type books in a classroom library would fall under this, and then in addition to the books in the library. And so, to answer, like I said, almost every individual trustee, we heard you and we talked, and I said, let's post the draft policy as it reads on the website on Friday, so we can make sure that the community understands what we were talking about and we can get feedback. And we got great feedback, written feedback, and similar to what you all shared, and the trustees heard you. So I started sending out draft revisions, 2 or 3, would take individual feedback from board members, try to get that to consensus, and then put out more feedback. What do you think about this? But the absolute feedback I got from this board was that they did not support implementing this policy on August the 22nd, that they wanted that pushed to a later date. So I had recommended that we pull this to a standalone dual reading, that we work on what the policy is going to look like tonight, and then you can decide the implementation. We looked in consulting with district level staff, as well as some of our lead librarians here and there. We were suggesting an October implementation. We thought that was enough time, but that's certainly something you all can have a conversation about. We can talk about it. There are a couple of teacher work days coming up, one in September and one in October, but we can also, as I said, you all can talk about that. But that was the first thing that you asked, and so as I shared, based on that feedback, absolutely, I answered the question that you can still say the policy, get the parameters in place so that people know what we're looking forward and they're looking to do, and then you just say to be effective at a date in the future. So to answer that question, we will be putting the implementation date to a time in the future, and I suggested October the 3rd, But I say that that is a conversation that you all can, have here from the dais. And then some of the other revisions that we, talked about was looking at the reconsideration process, the timeline that we had in there, just getting feedback specifically from our district level librarian. They agreed that I'd put a little too much time in there. They thought it could be done in 30 days. If it's a particularly complex book or time of the year, it can be extended if the committee determines it. So that was another change that I suggested from the feedback and from the original red line, and I think that was really the primary. We tweaked some of the language. We will have a regulation that, again, is what we pulled from the library operating manual, so it's got a little bit more of the detail. That's an administrative regulation, so we'll continue to take your feedback on that. But ultimately, what I would say that this policy does is what I've heard many parents and community members and educators say, is that parents need to be able to make decisions for their kiddos, and that no one person needs to be in the position of making decisions for all people's kiddos. And so it's a balance for that, and that's what I think the policy does, in my opinion. And I think it does honor our librarians that we leaned on heavily in this process, and will continue to do so. And they support the teachers in the classroom and instruction, and they'll be able to continue to do that.
And just for your information, Board, Marnie talked about the September teacher workday, and that is at the end of September on the 26th, but there's also one in October. But the October one is also at the end of the month. It's on the 24th. So just so you have that information.
So I would suggest that if you would like, why don't you make a motion, and since there were no other questions about any of the other dual reading policies, then I would suggest that we just remove EFB from the current motion, and you can pass those policies, and then let's take EFB on its own, make a motion, and you all can have a conversation about the implementation date, because I really think the consensus of the stakeholder feedback, and certainly what I heard from this board loud and clear over the weekend, was that you were not supporting the what I recommended, and that's fine, and that's what I shared. Dr. Blassingame, Ms. Heineman, I shared with several directly that I had said if we pass a policy, then we need to follow that policy, and I can't recommend not following the policy if it's in effect. So that's the reason that we were saying if we're not ready to go by the 22nd, then we need to defer access. But very appropriately pointed out by several is, or we can delay when the policy takes effect. But I do think I wouldn't recommend not passing the policy, because I think we need to know what we're working with, and then just give the additional time that you want to work toward getting the policy ready to go. So,
Board, I will in fact entertain a motion to remove 4N4 EFB local from agenda item 4N for further consideration.
So moved.
Motion has been made to remove 4N4 EFB local. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of removal, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes, Holly. Now I will entertain a motion to approve 4N1, 4N2, 4N3, 4N5, 4N6, and 4N7.
So moved.
That motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. That motion passes, Holly. Now we're to 4N4 EFB local instructional resources library materials. So there's two ways we can handle this. One is we can go ahead and have open discussion now, or I can entertain a motion with a second and then have discussion. I would prefer, with the board's concurrence, that we go ahead and have open discussion now and then see if we want to tweak this further before we bring it to a vote. Does that comport with the board's Support? Very good, we'll do so. I will look to my right, more nods coming from the right, to see what comments or questions you want to ask or make. Mr. Henry.
I, of course, would like to have seen this done earlier when the TA introduced this back in April, but I'm glad we're working on something. I'm thankful we delayed this. I heard from a lot of teachers over the weekend at church, even my own mother-in-law. I guess I'm going to rely on administration to tell us when. That's what I'm going to rely on, because I don't know any better than y'all. So I guess when that time frame is, y'all tell us, and we'll push back on y'all. And I think that's, or Dr. Henry, y'all can tell us what y'all think is appropriate and right. I will support that decision based on the consensus of administration. So,
Dr. Natalie Blasingame.
I appreciate the consideration and the very wise comments from Council Sims. I do support this idea of getting the expectations clear for all staff members and all stakeholders so that they know what they're working towards, but absolutely giving them time to do that. And it seemed like October, after maybe the end of October, so there could be 2 work days. Thank you for mentioning that date, that it was later. Seems like a time frame which is fair and respects our profession. I have been a teacher in the classroom. I collected a classroom library very carefully, and I do understand it was my money and my time, and I was very proud, and it was very important to instruction. So I feel like having access is critical. It also did raise the question for me about classroom libraries provided by the district and why there's such a disparity and who gets them and who doesn't, and making sure we really resource our teachers on the most critical thing, which is literacy. And so I look forward to those conversations further. And then also just expectations on where the buck stops. As a principal, the buck stopped with me in my building. And so I did ask a question. I never discussed anyone's jobs or any statements about that, but our job is policy and implementation of policy. And so I appreciated the answer that I got, and it did satisfy that we, like all policy, but it is important that people understand the framework within which they're working. They don't have to have fear as they go through their classroom library, worried about a book that may, like you said, the goal that got past the goalie. What did he say, Dr. Henry saying? So I feel, just everywhere that we can make sure people are super clear on what's their responsibility and what's their principal's responsibility, what's our responsibility as boards of district's responsibility. And I do feel like the answers we got are there, that if that's your collection and you own it, then that's your collection that you're responsible for. So that is I definitely would love to give the gift of time back to our educators so that they can prepare instruction in the lesson plans they already have, including even in collections such as English 1, where the curriculum has a list of books that may not yet be, maybe there's 8 books of choice if there's a book club or something like that. I would like to see us also allow, look at those collections, make sure they are pretty much agreeable books that everyone could, if there's 8, maybe 6 of them have no question, and make sure that the curriculum can proceed in upper grades as well.
Yeah, Dr. Blasingame, no, you go, Linda.
As I'm looking at the calendar for this school year, I'm looking, as I said, the teacher work days for the fall are September 26th and October 24th. But if we get the next week to November, the next full week, the November 7th and 8th are actually teacher professional days. So November the 9th might be an option, because now you have the 2 work days and you have those 2 professional days. Just a thought.
Mr. Sarabia.
Implementation of the policy, let it start, let the teacher, the librarians, let them start their work, delay the action till the professionals give us a day that's acceptable to get the job done. That's fine. You guys know what you guys are doing.
And to my left, Mr. Scanlon.
I agree that we shouldn't put a policy into effect that isn't reasonable to implement. That makes sense. Echoing Mr. Henry, I'll rely on administration to give us guidance on what makes sense. So I appreciate giving us updates on work days and professional development days. That makes plenty of sense. The goal here is to enable strong partnerships so that our parents can understand what's in the library, and that we're set up for success going forward for all parties involved. So I support the administration. I will support your recommendations going forward regarding a time frame, and I look forward to getting that put together.
Ms. Blackshear.
A question first. Do I understand correctly that there is a form that must be completed on each individual book? When we say inventory, so is there a form that the teachers are or librarians / volunteers expected to complete on that book, and does it include like a synopsis of the content? What does this inventory look like is my first question.
Okay. So since Thursday, we've worked to figure out a way for teachers to be able to inventory this in the most efficient ways possible that we could figure out. So the team has created an electronic inventory, and that electronic inventory will be where the teachers will be adding the title of the book, probably the author, and then the collection level. So juvenile, young adult, adult. In addition to that, the team has built into this electronic inventory, I guess, suggestions or ways to expedite. It's like it'll link back to Destiny. Is that correct, Todd? There'll be a link back to that so they can see if it's already in the library system. The team also found, actually, I think one of our teachers found it and tweeted it, so they went and looked at it, a way where the teachers can scan is it the ISBN number? The ISBN number, and then it'll also help with collecting that quickly, the title of the book. So it's not a synopsis. It is the name of the book, the title of the book, and then what the level is for that book. It is still going to take time, though. Please don't think that it's not going to take time. It's still going to take our teachers time to do all this, but the electronic format gives them just some different guidance and options, and they even created some little videos to help the teachers along with how to do this, how to do this part. And thank you, Marnie. And that is for the classroom library. It's not. Right. Right.
For the classroom
Yes,
library.
it's not for the actual library.
Okay, and did I understand in conversation that as a book is inventoried, it is available to be checked out?
That is correct. And what was currently presented, just to give you an example, if a teacher has a classroom library of 300 books and was only able, currently, like before any changes, and was only able to inventory by August 22nd, 100 of them, then those 100 books could be immediately available to students. The next day, they might have another 2 that they inventory, or the next week, they might have another 50 that they inventory. So it could be continuously adding to what's available to students. And then as Marnie has shared, some of the books in the classroom library are used as instructional resources, not just reading for joy. And so those are in another policy.
Right, okay. Well, I think my feeling would be that, and of course, I always trust our administration to make the best decisions, but my opinion would be November the 9th at the earliest. Originally, I had been a proponent of January 1, but as I sit and think about it, once we hit the middle of November and everyone's getting ready for Thanksgiving holidays and then getting ready for Christmas, and we all know how hectic that time is, I think if we extend it to January 1st, it sort of puts an undue burden on those that are doing the inventory, because that's kind of hanging over their head that, yes, I've got to get my books inventoried, I've got to prepare my family for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and there's so much going on with that time of the year, I think that the November 9th date would make the most sense in my mind to have it completed, and that will have given them, as you pointed out, Dr. Macias, the 2 teacher work days, plus then we have the days we're out of school for general election. And that makes the most sense in my mind and what I would be most supportive of.
Just to add one thing, and maybe Teresa, you're the best to talk about this, but talk about some of the student service projects and campus volunteers.
Well, we just talked about all the different options of groups that we can make available to our campuses to support our teachers with the process. Obviously, our parent volunteers, especially at our elementary level and middle school levels, we have a large number of parents that are very active and I think would be willing to help and support on this project with our classroom teachers. At the high school level, we have amazing students that can be a tremendous support through this process. They're always looking for community service hours, our National Honor Society students, our Key Club students. So we have reached out to Don Tryon, who also works with our VIPS program, to assist us with trying to solicit that, and it could even be community volunteers, some of our retirees, some of our global volunteers to again go in and help assist with this project. But I think before we dump a bunch of volunteers on the campus, we want our teachers to figure out what process is that they're going to be using so that then they can quickly instruct those volunteers on how to best support them. But we are going to utilize all the resources possible to help them with that.
Ms. Heineman.
Thank you. I do believe this policy is appropriate. It's good because it strikes an appropriate balance between respecting and empowering that relationship between a student's parents and the teachers, while also for their own child, but also ensuring that books of all types are accessible to students, that we are truly providing books that are appropriate for all of our kids. Obviously, the issue is with the implementation. So I have a question. If we delay the implementation, which I obviously support, let's say we delay it and we want it to be ready to go January 1st. Like we are 100% ready to go. So you all work backwards to see at what point is it November 20th. I don't know. I'm still not sure about November 9th. Maybe it's November 23rd. Maybe it's that week between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't know, but it's somewhere so that we are ready to go. It's 100% implemented January 1st. In the meantime, I want to ensure that all books in the library and in classroom libraries are accessible to students. So we're not holding anything back. If a parent wants to restrict or limit the books that are accessible by their own child, they can use the procedures which we've always had in place, which is they can contact the librarian or the teacher. Is that correct?
Yes, and thank you for triggering that. That was your gentle way of saying you forgot to mention this piece, which is that is one thing that I've talked about with several of you, is that we have gotten the piece in place to codify what we've always done, which was, go into eSchool. And I think one of our speakers appropriately said what we said was that, yes, we do have great relationships between our campus librarians and our parents, but sometimes if it's a note in eSchool, one campus does it one way or another one does it in a different system, their library software system, there could be the possibility where there is miscommunication if there's been an indication that, yes, I'll limit the number of times Captain Underpants can be checked out, and then it gets checked out. So that's the reason we wanted to put the opt-out in Home Access Center. the parent portal. And so, yes, Julie, the long answer to your short question is that we will have that up and going by the first day of school. And so however long it takes us to get everything inventoried and the collections done and all of this policy implemented, if there is a parent who says, you know, I respect that, I would like to wait until that process is done before my kiddo accesses library materials. We will have that through the Home Access Center parent portal. Aren't they the same thing?
Okay, so
Oh,
just
they're
to
not the
clarify,
same thing.
so on August 22nd,
We're like Thelma and Louise.
all
after all this
books
time
in
together.
on our campus libraries and in classroom libraries will be available.
Yes, if you implement, strike that. If you delay implementation, then we will be preparing, and in the interim, we will be operating under our current policy.
That's
but if there's anyone who wants to ensure that their child waits until the new policy is in effect, they can do that through the parent portal.
Okay, thank you for that.
And Ms. Heidemann,
yes.
Since you mentioned more dates, just to give you some more dates that you might want to jot down. So the 8th, as I said, are those 2 days, the 7th and 8th. The 11th is the end of that week. So November 11th is the end of the week of the district staff development piece of it. So, and the following Friday is the 18th, and then it's Thanksgiving break.
So in terms of the dates, I really feel like it's not that we should be picking the date. I think we need to ask our district librarian. We need to ask our principals. We need to, I just don't know. No, it's not a sporting event. I think we just need to have the stakeholders that are most involved and can best answer those questions come up with that decision. But we still have the right to say, but we want this to be ready to go and implemented January 1st. And then the people who will be doing the work can help figure out what's the right time to start or to have those rolling goals, to meet that deadline. That's just my thought on that. I have one more question and a possible amendment to EFBR, the regulation.
So, Ms. Heinemann, an amendment is not appropriate at this time.
Oh, well, that's disappointing. Okay, so okay.
Well, I think she means
So,
not an amendment.
Pardon me, Counsel. The reason why it's not appropriate is this time is set aside for discussion.
Okay.
After we finish with all discussion, I can then recognize you for an amendment.
Excellent. Thank you. I have no further questions right now. Thank you.
I do want to say thank you to admin for being very responsive. You always have been. I had to chuckle. I spent the vast majority of my today either answering emails or taking phone calls, and sometimes doing both at the same time. I was late arriving here because I was finishing up that. I foolishly took a phone call on this topic while I was driving on Highway 6 and was immediately pulled over by an officer of the law. Thankfully, he gave me a warning, so I promised never to take a phone call on the library policy again while I'm driving in my car. Hopefully Siri will be able to screen phone calls and let me know this is about library policy. Don't take this phone call, Tom. But I do appreciate the input from everybody in the district. It is meaningful. This is a significant policy. We need the input. A couple of comments. One, I would say that this is not a small minority of people. Remember, both TEA and TASB told us this was coming, right? The state legislature, I have no doubt, will be taking up this topic when they convene. I have had conversations with members of our delegation who have indicated that this will be an item that will find its way into the bills. Accordingly, I want Cypher to be ahead of the curve so that we can communicate with our elected officials, this is the policy that we think is best, so our elected officials don't come up with a different policy that is at significant odds with what we have implemented, so we then have to re-implement another policy. But both TASB and TEA have already told us, y'all need to do this. I do want to say thank you to my colleagues who brought this to my attention very early on in the process. I certainly was not aware that this was that hot button of an issue, but gradually from January through May, I learned that it was. I have been involved with the implementation of systems throughout my business career. There are always hiccups, but also know that if you don't have a firm date you're working toward, work is often set aside. What we would do in the business world is we'd pick an implementation date, but we would have partial implementation steps along the way. I don't know that we can do that here. Maybe we can. We definitely have at least 3 different collections, each requiring different types of work and different types of resources. So we have our hard book library collection, we have our e-book library collection, and then we have the in-classroom library collection. Each one requires different resources. Currently, as I understand it, we don't have a solution yet for our e-book library collection from a software perspective. So perhaps that is a separate deadline to meet that, because currently we don't quite know how to do it. In the business world, we would rely upon the methods of 40 years ago called CPM and PERT to look at those critical nodes. I don't know that that's appropriate in this case, but the concept remains the same. I, like my colleagues, am more than happy to throw Dr. Henry under the school bus and say, you pick the date. Then if anybody's mad, they'll all be mad at you. But I can't quite do that as board president. It is our responsibility to pass the policy, and yes, we can be advised by management as to what they think. I did have a conversation with both Mark as well as Teresa today, and we did kick around different dates. And I thought about January 1, but the problem with January 1 is, by golly, it's preceded by Christmas, which is preceded by Thanksgiving, semester-ending finals. And so I backed away from January 1 as being the effective date. If we were in the business world, we would have a mock date that we would create when you're running a new systems implementation. You don't run live immediately, but you have trial runs. And once again, I don't know that approach is workable in this case. I'm not opposed to having 3 different go live dates, because we have 3 different types of collections. But I do want to hear a little more feedback from management. And Marnie, I hesitate to call on you because we do want to be finished before tomorrow morning. But I will trust you. So yes.
One suggestion, President Jackson, could be November the 15th, and then if we get to, after that, those 2 professional development days on the 7th and 8th, and if it looks as if we need additional time, then we can post for the November board meeting and take action on November the 14th, and extend it as needed.
Comments, observations from the board? Mr. Scanlon?
Yeah. So again, drawing on business world experience, Council Sims, your recommendation regarding having an opportunity at the board meeting to confirm delivery and then make adjustments as necessary, it's a reasonable point. And like you, Debbie, I also don't think this is something that should go over the holidays. I think we need to be done, or at least have a target to completion before that date, and give our administration, our staff, teachers, librarians, et cetera, all the opportunity in the world and support during that time. I think it would be interesting to find out what the notion of phased milestones would be. I'd like to understand from the administration, is there some way that we could craft what those would represent, what those ideas might be, and whether or not you feel that that would be helpful, just to gauge progress as we march towards those dates?
That's a great question. I would say from our district librarian, we may be able to get some type of monthly report on how we're progressing with libraries. I think that gets a little more difficult because what do we have, 6,000 or 7,000 classrooms? So, and a lot of classrooms have very few or zero books. So, I mean, they're going to be complete pretty early, but there's some with hundreds of books.
I think a notion here might simply be sometimes an order, what I call an order of magnitude estimate, not something overly precise, but a representation of what that number probably is most likely sufficient just to give us a gauge of how do we think we're doing.
Yes, we do.
And instead of going one by one, if anybody has other questions, comments, just raise your hand. I'll call on you. Natalie.
Based on my education experience, just teasing, can't bring the business world, but I am intrigued a little bit about this idea of phased in with the library section versus the classroom library section, so there could be some concerted effort there. However, I would definitely support was it the 15th you said this, the end of that week? November 15th?
Well, you said it, I agree.
November 15th is a Friday of that week out before the 11th.
Tuesday.
No, Dr. Bossingham, that's the day after the board meeting, so it'd be Tuesday. I was saying that would give you the opportunity to take action on the 14th if we came to you at the workshop on November the 11th and said we need a little more time, even if it's like we need a little more time for just the digital books. And so then you could make a decision to implement the policy as to everything but digital books, like for instance.
I think people work best towards a deadline. I'd love us to have a November 11th deadline for all the work to be done, and then we'll hear a report then. However, to Tom's point, I could entertain this concept of there being different stages because there are three very distinct. And to me, library collection, the books, they're already cataloged, they already have a criteria, they already have so much. Was there a number that was thrown around? It was 45,000 books bought last year, but there was a number of 4,000. Was that about the ones that exist right now that don't have a level on them? Is there any idea about that?
That depends on each library.
Yeah.
They're
there's no,
different.
right now we do not know. There are some that just are not existing for a read anywhere in the system based on the vendors and the titles.
There's the one example that we pulled out because obviously high school has the most books. So we pulled one high school and they have a little over 8,000 books in that library, and about shy of 3,000 already have the level. So you can see that there's 5,000 that still need to be worked on.
And I would also support maybe looking different at elementary versus secondary, because the more problematic titles do exist in secondary. And so it might be that could be done differently for elementary and secondary. I just throw that out not to overcomplicate. But if I had one thing, I would see that week of November 11th being a deadline would be great.
Regarding the date, I think what I'm hearing from council is that it's important to have the deadline be after the November board meeting so that if we do need to take action, we can. So we don't want to set it up for a failure, that there's a failure before, we want to make sure that we have that built-in flexibility. So I think that's the reason why, we're talking about the difference between November 11th and November 15th.
Yeah,
we're talking about 4 days, but it gives us more
I think we just got confused
flexibility.
on the dates.
Yes, thank you, Julie, for that clarification. I agree with you. That's a great idea.
So we aren't voting on it, but I don't see anybody voicing opinions that the November 15th idea put forth by Marnie is an idea that we cannot embrace. Further discussion on the point. Yes, sir.
I think it hits all of our objectives in listening to our librarians, teachers, and administration on reasonable dates. As we set a target, then we march towards it so we can have a listening year as we go through phased implementation, or at least some form of milestones or understanding, while we also have the ability to take action, as Julie said, before we have a scenario in which we're failing. So I do not object to the 15th.
So I like the 15th as well, for particularly knowing that it's flexible. We have to have a date that we work toward, but it has to be a realistic goal that we have a good chance to succeed. And Julie, you wanted to propose another tweak to the policy. So I don't know that it would necessarily be an amendment, but go ahead and explain what change you would like to make to the already tweaked and tweak some more policy.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that because it hadn't already been voted in. It's not an amendment, it's just an adjustment. So thank you for that clarification on terminology. The section that I would like to see adjusted is under the EFB R, the regulations, under collection access and permissions. Under this section, it shares the procedures for parents to opt in to adjust the levels of books that their children have access to. So just to walk through this, the way it currently stands, it says students in pre-K through grade 6 may check out fiction books from the juvenile collection. Students in grades 7 through 8 may check out fiction books from the juvenile collection, and with parent permission can also check out fiction books from the young adult collection of books on their campus. So they can opt in for the next level up. And we're talking about reading levels. Students in grades, 9 through 12 may check out fiction books from the juvenile and young adult collections, and with parent permission may also check out fiction books from the next level, which is the adult collection. So parents with students who are in grades 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th have the opportunity to give permission for their children to opt up to a higher reading level, or books that are at a higher reading level. I'm concerned about our advanced readers in grades 4, 5, and 6, that they are limited to only collections in the juvenile, or only books in the juvenile collection. When I went to the Scholastic website and I looked up one of our favorite books that my children and I read in elementary school, the Percy Jackson series. And those books are for grades 4 through 8, ages 9 through 12. And I would hate that kiddos in grades 4 and 5 not have access to Percy Jackson and similar books. So I'm suggesting that we add for students in grades 4 through 6, be able to, with parent permission, to be able to also check out fiction books from the young adult collection of books on their campus.
And this just, what I was sharing earlier.
So before you started on that, Marty, Board, this is a little cumbersome to handle this in an open meeting.
So I'm sorry, she's talking about the regulation, Tom, and that's what I tried to say earlier. It was not an amendment to this is not the policy, this is the regulation. It doesn't have to, that's good feedback, and we can bring that forward with the regulation. It doesn't have to be voted on.
But we are not voting on regulation. No. We're only voting on policy.
Understood. I just want to make sure that I am in a public setting, because the regulations are more detailed implementation from the districts. It's the roadmap to follow the policy. So I just want to make sure that when those regulations reflect parents' permission, an opportunity for students to be able to access books that are better matched with their reading level, and for those kiddos who are in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
Okay, so we covered it from a legal perspective. Linda, any comment you want to make?
No, I noted that down, and we will certainly have those conversations with our teams. Thank you.
Okay. So before we make a change on the date, what I want to do, yes, Mr. Henry.
Can I make one more comment real quickly?
Yes, sir.
Since we're making this date out in time, possibly, can I make a suggestion as well? since we're making these changes, and there's also some technology changes as well that we don't have control over, can we maybe get feedback from district librarian before the next meeting? That since that may affect the date we have in the future, get some feedback from her before the next meeting that may encompass changing the date to a later time in the future. Maybe that would be good feedback for us to get. So give her our ideas of what we're thinking, and that way we can get some feedback from that district librarian as well. Just an idea.
We are actually meeting with the district librarians tomorrow.
Okay.
And
Just
so,
all of our
Jen, we
feedback
can
and
talk
maybe-
to them about that and get
Right.
their feedback about implementation, if this will
That way
work
we
as
can
far as
get that
implementation.
confirmed.
So this would be another question, throwing it back both to you, Marnie, and as well as to you, Linda. We can do one or two things. We can defer a decision on this until the next board meeting, or we can go ahead, plug in the November 15th date, knowing that we can amend that date by the next board meeting. Does management have preference? Would you care to give any comments, do we as a board, before we take action?
Obviously, as the CEO, I would defer to Dr. Henry.
I was going to check with Marnie on the legality of y'all allowing us to determine what that date might be without including it in the policy not to exceed January 1st. So we may do it quicker. So I don't know if that's legal or not.
I don't love it. What I would say is that I think because the board says, I mean, you have to take action, and I think absent you giving a date specific in the future, I would say that the policy is effective upon approval. And so I think you need to give a date certain in the future. Sorry, CEO. But that's my recommendation. But as you pointed out, we can pick a date, and then if we need to, at the next board meeting, we can give you guys an update, and then you can take action to defer it further in September if we just say there's no.
I think that's a good idea, as long as after meeting with the district librarians tomorrow, and they may say it'll take till January 1st, we can come back in September. And
Oh, absolutely. Sadly, I'll agree with you, Marnie, and I hope not to make a habit of this ever. But I do think a date certain is important. I think the board's already indicated that our general preference, that for all kinds of reasons, that we not delay it to January 1. But I also support the concept, this is a brand-new system to be implemented. We haven't done any implementation prior to this, even on a test basis, which is what this district normally does. So we will have no idea how long this will take until we get into it. And I think the board is very comfortable picking a date, but then also y'all coming back to us at the next board meeting to say, hey, folks, guess what? Great news. Campus libraries, they'll be 90% done by middle of September. Or really bad news, they aren't even going to have a chance to get this done until around February 1st. Because until we try, we won't know. And so I think that is a way to proceed, but I do think we need to go ahead and pass the policy so that we know we're working toward it. We can always come back and modify the policy. And as I said at the Thursday work session, I expect further tweaks. So I don't see that this is set in stone. Gilbert reminds me that from time to time this district has suffered freezes and hurricanes and power outages, all of which that can impact as well. So instead of, so there's two ways of handling this. We have a document in place. My proposal is that we have a motion to approve it. We have a second. Then I will entertain a motion to amend the effective date to be November 15th. We then vote on the amendment, and then we vote on the motion itself. Does that work for the board? Okay, so let's proceed. I would entertain a motion to approve 4N4 EFB local instructional resources library materials as presented most recently today in a redlined form. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
That motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. I will now entertain an amendment to change the effective date to be November 15th. Do I hear that motion?
Mr. President, I move that we amend the policy to set an effective date of November 15th.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion is passed. We now have an amended motion on the floor. I will now call for a vote on the motion as amended. Motion's been made and amended on 4N4 EFB local instructional resources library materials add. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Please so indicate if you would, Holly. I want to say thank you to the board. I want to say thank you to management. Most particularly, I want to say thank you to the librarians and teachers who reached out to each and every one of us, often repeatedly, some more than once. I know I certainly communicated with some patrons more than once because they weren't certain that I got the message the first time around, and that's okay. My mother often had to do that with me, but I also appreciate patrons reaching out to us. And I would ask senior management to make certain that we keep our legislative delegation involved in this. Certainly they will have feedback for us as well, but if we can be ahead of the curve, it is better for us as a district, and it is better for our teachers, and it is better for our students. Before we go to citizen participation, because it is now 8:16, I'm going to call for a 4-minute recess. That way, if you don't want to stay for citizen participation, you don't have to. That includes anybody in any one of the 3 audience groupings.
Not that group.
Save and except in that audience grouping, I've just been told you do not have permission to leave. But be that as it may, a quick 4 or 5 minute restroom break, and then we will reconvene for citizen participation. We will now proceed with the citizen participation portion of the agenda. 5A, BED Local. Patrons may address the board during the regular board meeting under citizen participation on any matters of interest or concerns that are not posted agenda items. Individuals may only register to speak one time per meeting and must register in advance. Registration opens the day the agenda is posted to the district website, and the deadline for registering is 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. To register, individuals must click on the Register to Speak link found under Citizen Participation heading in the agenda for that meeting on the district website. This electronic speaker form must be completed in its entirety. Any registered speaker who is absent from the meeting at the time for citizen participation forfeits the opportunity to address the board at that meeting, but may submit written comments to the board. Just as a reminder, patrons who have registered to speak this evening may see the order of names listed on the screens to your right and to your left. Before your name is called, please move forward and sit in one of the 2 reserved seats on the front row. Mr. Secretary, are you ready? Yes. Very good. Our first speaker is Leslie Gilmart, CFISD parent and resident.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Gilmart. Both of my children are CFISD students, and I am a member of the REAL Cy-Fair Civic Alliance, a nonpartisan group that promotes inclusion and opportunity for all. I applaud district leaders for their hard work developing CFISD's new character education program, Bringing Out the Best, which will teach students about virtues such as kindness and integrity. I'm confident every trustee would claim to value such traits. As we all know, modeling for our children what we value is the most powerful teaching tool we have. That's why we were surprised to learn that the wife of a current board member filed trademark paperwork to take Cy-Fair Civic Alliance's name. What motivated a board member's spouse to knowingly take the name of an existing parent group? Is this what kindness and integrity look like? What does such behavior model for students? One of the traits in the portrait of a CFISD graduate is a, quote, responsible citizen who is honest, self-disciplined, respectful of others, and in a cooperative manner contributes to the community's welfare. I wonder if this individual is a CFISD graduate. Rest assured, friends, the real Cy-Fair Civic Alliance is as committed and focused as ever. We will continue to do nonpartisan work on behalf of all students and families because we believe CFISD is for everyone. We invite all Cypress families to join us in celebrating and strengthening our public schools during these challenging times. Furthermore, we urge people to vote for kindness and integrity in future school board elections.
Our next speaker is Kathleen Scherer, CFISD parent and resident.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Scherer. I am a member of the REAL Cy-Fair Civic Alliance, a homeowner in CFISD, and a parent of 2 CFISD students. I am also a certified teacher with over 25 years of experience in the classroom. Many of my prepared comments have already been rehashed, so I'll be skipping around. I would like first to thank the board and the district for the proposed policy on EFB local. I have read the policy and I appreciate that it honors my voice and my choice as a parent. That being said, the lack of communication around this topic was yet another blow to classroom teachers and librarians at a time when educators are already feeling beat up. Again, I do not have issue with the policy itself. However, by proposing this policy 2 weeks before the start of school, with details still to be worked out and without clear implementation protocols, you created an information vacuum. And when there is an information vacuum, people's tendency is to fill in the blank with the worst case scenario. If you had consulted classroom teachers, school librarians, district curriculum coordinators or coaches, if you had communicated the goals and desired outcomes to the people on the front lines, if you had trusted your people and communicated your needs, they could have helped ensure that the implementation of the policy was feasible. I implore you to give your teachers, librarians, and other professionals a seat at the table and clearly communicate your future proposals and implementation plans with them in a timely manner. I have to believe that things will go so much more smoothly for everyone involved if you commit yourself to better communication and more seats around an inclusive table. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tanzayika Williams.
Okay. Good evening, President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Mark Henry. On behalf of the Texas State Teachers Association and the National Education Association, I am the Cy-Fair TSTA NEA President. The National Education Association's vision, mission, and value statement supports public education first and foremost, and I would like to reiterate those statements to you as their representative. We, the members of the National Education Association of the United States, are the voice of education professionals. Our work is fundamental to the nation, and we accept the profound trust placed in us. Our vision is a great public school. Our vision is a great public school for every student. Our mission is to advocate for education for education professionals and to unite our members and the nation to fulfill the promise of public education, to prepare every student to succeed in a diverse and interdependent world. Our core values include the following principles, which guide our work and define our mission: equal opportunity, a just society, democracy, professionalism, partnership, and collective action. This is no longer, hold on, let me take my glasses off. This is no higher mission for us public school educators than those I have just reiterated. You can count on Cy-Fair TSTA NEA to uphold the vision, mission, and core values of the NEA, and to work with Cy-Fair ISD to make them a reality for our students and teachers. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our Cy-Fair board. I have Vice President Monica Edwards, Erica Schott, our secretary, and Beatrice Durando Perez, the treasurer. Finally, I thank Mr. Jackson and the board members for the opportunity to speak. I also want to thank Dr. Henry for meeting with me last month. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Monica Dean, FISD parent resident.
In June, Todd LeCompte introduced Texas Civic Alliance, a conservative Christian group created to make the community aware of and to organize volunteer opportunities, not only in Cy-Fair, but in other area districts and across Texas as well. A perfect opportunity, which was already mentioned earlier, to make a positive impact with your time is to be a bus buddy. For the first 2 days of school, you can help ensure that the youngest kiddos get off their bus at the correct location. Look for the sign up soon, and also consider being a mentor for the upcoming school year. Mark your calendars for a fun student DIY event on September 16th. According to SB 797, authored by Tom Ollerson, a framed poster with our nation's motto, "In God We Trust," can be donated to a public school or college and must be displayed in a visible place. This event is open to all students in any district that wants to donate one, either individually or as a group. This is not a fundraiser, it's a DIY. Students bring their own frame to the event. We provide the motto poster and supplies to personalize the back of the frame at cost. And if your school is already taken, no worries. There's hundreds of schools in our area to bless. And I want to thank the board and administration for working diligently to put this new comprehensive library policy together. This policy not only adheres to Texas Penal Code 43.24, but creates more transparency and further strengthens the partnership between the district, parent, and child. Because of the tremendous scope of work it will take to implement this new system, and as a former volunteer in the library and book fairs, I would like to offer to organize volunteers to assist with the process of cataloging these library books to any interested campuses. So please feel free to contact me at texascivicalliance.com and any information you may need. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nikki Cowart, CFISD parent and resident.
Change can be a really good thing most of the time. Being able to pivot in order to help students and those that serve them is always a good thing. But as Cy-Fair students prepare to return to class 2 weeks from today, some proposed policy changes discussed here last week don't seem to be a good fit for all kids. My own Cy-Fair ISD middle school student was so sad upon hearing the amazing librarian at his home campus might be closed for business for the next 6 weeks or possibly for the next 6 months of the school year. Regs and policy voted upon tonight, yet the first back-to-school librarian meeting doesn't happen until tomorrow. Couldn't questions and concerns from librarians and language arts teachers, the ones that are actual experts in their field, help streamline these changes in order to be good for all of our kids? None of our Cy-Fair ISD campus librarians were asked to weigh in, but the viewing audience needs to understand there has always been complete transparency in our Cy-Fair libraries. Listen, as we face a nationwide teacher and school staff shortage, we must allow our employees to have a seat at the table, treating teachers and school staff like the professionals they are, with time to plan and prepare for our students. the chance to collaborate with colleagues, the power to make day-to-day school decisions, and ongoing professional development so that they can grow in their careers. Why do we have a teacher shortage? Because we have a shortage of respect for our educators. A shortage of the professional working conditions that allow teachers, librarians, bus drivers, and other staff to do their best for our students. So let's work together on regs and policy to change that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brian Henry, CFISD parent and resident.
Sorry, I'm up here a third time. My wife usually has choir on Mondays, so I can't come to the meetings, so I'm getting a semester's worth in tonight. I just want to thank the board for listening to feedback and adjusting the implementation timeline for the new book policy. I hope the entire community sees how much we care about books and literacy, how much we care about our children's education, how much we care about our teachers and librarians. As Julie said earlier, tonight may have felt like a sporting event at times, but there were no winners and losers in my opinion. I think our staff won, I think our kids won. This is what it can look like for the community to do what's best for kids. So I wish the board well this year, and I applaud everyone returning to work to teach our children, and I hope everyone has a wonderful school year. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Mark Golaby, CFISD resident.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to visit. I do kind of like this new setup where you go through and register, and that way your name is on the list, and if you can't get here till 7, your name hadn't been called, you can get up. One of the issues brought out from the survey was a concern of the discipline in the classroom. And this is critical, as we discussed at the last board meeting. The lack of discipline is undue stress on the teachers. If the teacher is constantly having to reprimand students, it interrupts the flow of the instruction. A disciplined learning environment is conducive to achieving even greater improvement in student learning outcomes. Over the summer break, I did get an opportunity to visit with Cyfair General Counsel Marnie Sims. A big part of our conversation was structuring more board member outreach. We discussed at a high level some structure of a town hall style meetings. Such dialogue could be very good at addressing some of the frustrations within the Cyfair community. Marnie presented her concerns of the open meetings requirements, which I do respect and understand that. But that does not mean that board members can't have meetings to actually dialogue with the Cyfair residents. The outcomes from these discussions could be a board member helping a parent navigate a particular situation just because they know what they know, providing resources that the parent may not be aware of that are available within the school district to help solve their problem, or even inviting that person to come to the board meeting and present their findings or present their situation. And I think we agreed on the settings, and I think that's a good way for the board to reach out to the community, have conversations, and have dialogue, and help diffuse some of these issues without becoming frustrating for here at these board meetings, because it's addressed further down the line, closer to where the people are. So from that, I appreciate the opportunity, and y'all have a great evening.
Six, closed session. If during the course of the meeting covered by this notice, the board should determine that a closed session of the board should be held or is required in relation to any item included in this notice, then such closed session is authorized by Section 551.001 of the Texas Government Code, the Open Meetings Law Act, will be held by the board at that date, hour, and place given in this notice or soon after the commencement of the meeting covered by this notice, as the board may conveniently meet in such closed session concerning any and all subjects and for any and all purposes permitted by Section 551.071 through 551.084 of the Open Meetings Act. There are no speakers this evening, and I am aware of no topics that would require us to go into closed session. And now we get to number 7, adjournment. There are no speakers on whether or not, we should adjourn this evening, which is nice. I would like to thank our viewing audience. We are now adjourned.